Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. So today we're going to be doing a budget Walmart furniture makeover on this vintage desk that we have. I think we picked this up for around $14 at the time. It's an old secretary's desk. It has the hutch part on top. So everything we're going to be using on this piece will come from Walmart. And the reason why we chose Walmart is because there's one in every town in America pretty much. So, you know, obviously most people have one local to them. Now this is our first time using most of these products, and they were a little bit limited, but we did find a color that we liked. It was that toasted poppy seed and kills. And we were also looking at the wallpaper to kind of put in the back, and they, you know, have a few of those to choose from. Obviously that's a little bit of an extra that we went with. You could just paint the whole inside if you wanted to, but we wanted to give it a little bit of a different look in the back. So we did end up getting a wallpaper as well. And like I said, here's what we went with. We went with the toasted poppy seed from this Kills chalk paint, and we got the Kills clear furniture wax to seal it afterwards. And here's this wallpaper we went with. Kind of has a little bit of a modern look to it, but should complement the piece nicely. And now Walmart also has some, you know, knobs and pulls you can choose from. We're gonna just use these same pulls just to save money. Like I said, we're doing a budget makeover, but they do have different ones you can choose from if you want to put the extra money into getting the new knobs as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of do a little bit of a cleanup, reattach these loose pieces, shoot a few nails in. There's also a missing piece on the other side that was in the drawer that I need to glue and reattach as well. Next, I'm just going to remove the drawers, work on kind of taking everything apart. I'm going to take the hardware off. Again, I've mentioned this before, but one of the things you may want to do is number your drawers if they're not already numbered. And at the same time, I'm going to take off these doors and the rest of the hardware. And then I'm going to work around and just pop these trim pieces off so I can get the glass out. You want to be very careful, obviously, that you don't crack your glass, and you also don't want to crack these or break these trim pieces. So just kind of work around it slowly if you have a piece like this, and just pop those out. And now I like to label these kind of the same way with the drawers, just so you know where they go, because sometimes these pieces are a little bit unique fitting, and you know, especially if you're putting the same thickness of the glass and the trim piece back in, you can push those nails back into the same holes. Now with this, I'm going to be removing the trim piece because we have a broken piece, and we wanted to have a little bit more of a modern look to it, so that thickness won't be the same, but I'm still going to put these trim pieces back at the same spots. And I'm just using a little mini pry bar to go around and get behind there and just pop it off slow. Now I'm using a cut-proof glove here to handle this glass. It's always a good practice to have one of these on hand when you're handling glass, just so you don't cut your hand. You know, it's happened to me before. So anytime you're handling glass, it's a good idea to use one of these. And like I said, I'm going to take these trim pieces out because the one is broken and we're not going to be able to use those again. now I'm going to go and work around the back here to pop this back panel off. Now this is held on by a whole bunch of nails, so again, kind of like the trim, you just got to work around with a little pry bar and pop it off slowly so that you don't break any of it. And the reason why I'm popping this back piece off is to do the wallpaper. It's a lot easier to do wallpaper if you have a flat surface than to kind of work around all the shelves and the inner parts of the desk. And next I'm going to finish removing the hardware, all the drawer pulls.
Alright, so for this budget makeover, as you already know, we're using all products from Walmart, which means I have never used this paint before. So it is going to be brand new for all of us, unless you've already tried this, which you may have. But this is the Kills chalk paint, and we're just going to open it up together and see it for the first time. I have not opened this yet. We got it at Walmart the other day, and we're just going to check it out together. So let's try this paint. Now it does say, shake thoroughly before opening for application. So we're gonna shake it up and make sure that it's good to go before we open it, and then we'll open it up and then we'll clean this piece and see how this paint works. Well, it looks like a pretty nice consistency. It's a pretty color. This color is poppy seed, I think. Let's see. Yep, toasted poppy seed. So it isn't a pure black. It's more of like a really dark charcoal gray. All right, let's clean this piece up and then we'll see how this paint paints. So there was just like a little bump of something here. It almost looked like glue, and I just sanded it off. Okay, so we're ready to start painting. We don't have to worry about bleed through or anything like that because this is a darker color. So I'm just gonna try it the way it is, see if we like the consistency. It does say on the back that you can water it down a little bit if it's too thick for your liking. So I always like to try it the way it comes first. So we're gonna do that. And I just have my handy dandy zebra brush. This is one of my favorites because it's got kind of the shorter handle. Fits in your hand nicely, and you can get into smaller spaces with it without banging things and scratching them with the handle. So the first thing I noticed right off the bat with this paint is that it's very, very sticky, almost like a glue consistency when you're painting. So I used it for a while, but then decided that it would definitely be better to water it down. So you're going to see me do that in a while here. Now for these little cubbies, I just kind of went back and forth painting from the front, then I went around back and painted from the back, and it took a couple times of just running around trying to get it from all angles before I got all the paint on. And these are really a pain in the butt to paint. I don't suggest painting them, although they did look really nice in the end. It's a lot easier if you just leave the inside wood. For this particular piece, we weren't going for that kind of a look though, so we did paint them, and as you can see, it made a mess. I had paint all over my hands. And then this is where I decided it was time to water it down, so I added a lot of spritzes of water in there, and then I just kind of mixed it with my brush, and it painted so much better after this. Now I did decide this paint didn't level very well. It is a chalk paint, Chalk paint does have more texture, especially with this gluey consistency that this paint had. So I went to the old tried and true chalk paint method of just painting in every which direction to actually add to the texture, because there was just no way that I was going to get this to be a smoothly painted piece with this particular paint. And this method really does work well. It gives almost a suede texture to it. It feels like suede. It looks like suede almost. So it did give a really neat texture in the end, and I was happy with the outcome. And then here we're just going to paint in this little channel of the drawer, and Ethan will talk about that more a little bit later. He is going to sand the front of these drawers down later, and we thought it would be nice to have a little pop of contrasting color in that channel. And here's what the piece looked like after the first coat of paint went on. It did have a lot of bare spots. It didn't cover really well at first, but with the second coat, it did cover a lot better, and then I did go back and put a third coat on in a lot of the places where it was thin to begin with. So here you're just going to see me spritz it again and start going on with that second coat. And here we're going to just start painting these little cubbies again, same method. I'm going to paint the front and then go around and paint the back and just keep going back and forth until we get all the spots covered. It's better to do thinner coats that don't run and have to do more coats than to do thicker coats and have a lot of runny messes.
So we wanted to keep these drawers natural. I'm going to try just sanding them down, keeping the natural wood look to see how it looks with the rest of the piece. If you notice in this little groove, I had heather paint, some of the chalk paint color in there, just so that it kind of blends with the rest of the piece. And obviously I'm going to sand that off anyway while I'm sanding this whole thing. And then I'm just going to give this a quick hand sanding with 220 grit sandpaper and go with the grains, kind of smooth it out a little bit. And if you notice, there's some little marks left from the pulls that were on there. I don't want to sand too deep, otherwise you could get grooves in those spots. But I'm putting the same hardware back on this piece, so it'll cover it back up. But if you want to put different pulls on or different knobs, make sure that you get a nice even sanding and sand those marks out if you want. So I'm going to try this wax for the first time. A lot of waxes act kind of differently, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and seal these drawers up, and it actually felt pretty nice. It's a nice workable wax. Kind of had a silky feeling to it, so it actually worked pretty well, and I was happy with the way that it pulled the nice grains out of the drawers. You just want to make sure you're buffing it into the nice grains real well, because it's dry and it's going to be thirsty for something to kind of protect it and absorb. and then just wipe off some of that excess. And now for this, I'm just going to take my sander and kind of hit it decently heavy for distressing. Now chalk paint, a lot of times when you're distressing it, if it's a true chalk paint, it will kind of have this different look. So it's going to look a little bit drier, as you can see, the kind of texture difference. When you put your top coat on, it will all kind of blend together and it'll go back to more of the darker look that it was before I started sanding. So when you're sanding a true chalk paint, you will have a different look to it when you're distressing. Don't worry about it. When you put your top coat on, it'll kind of all blend together and it'll look a lot better. And you'll see that here as I finish up and put the wax on in the end. And then I take a 220 grit sandpaper again and just go over everything that I couldn't get with the orbital sander and kind of even it out. And again, you don't have to distress it all if you don't like that look or you don't want to. You could just go over it with the wax right after you're done painting and the paint dries. You know, you can put that coat of wax over that. Obviously, you don't have to distress it all. And next I'm going to finish up by putting the wax on the whole piece. Buff it on, let it soak in for a little bit, and then we're going to go back and wipe off the excess. And already when I first started, I could tell, you know, it was looking really nice again after I started putting that wax on, and it was going back to that dark, nice dark color. And like I said, for the first time using this wax, it actually applied really nicely and it felt really nice after it was dried. It had like a nice silky matte texture to it. And now the process of putting this wallpaper down. Now this was our first time actually using a wallpaper like this. We usually just paint everything. So it was a little bit of a learning experience, but we got it figured out for the most part. And it always helps to have an extra set of hands when you're doing this, just because of the peeling and the aligning. So we kind of just picked a spot where we wanted to start and just used a squeegee and kind of worked it down, worked all the bubbles and any unevenness out. And for this part, probably would have been better off using, like, cutting down the strip longwise, just so we didn't have so much to work with, because this was a smaller piece. Like I said, this is our first time actually working with wallpaper like this, so it was a little bit of a learning experience, but I think we got it, you know, decent enough. And then I just take a razor blade and go around the outside and cut off of that excess. Now again, when I'm putting the glass back in, I'm using my cut-proof glove, so you don't slice yourself on the edge of the glass. I'm just going to push these trim pieces back in with the existing nails, so I don't risk, you know, coming back with an air nailer, and sometimes, you know, with old glass you can risk cracking it if you're not careful. So I'm just pushing these trim pieces back in with those existing nails, and I'm just using that little mini pry bar again to kind of push those in. And now it's time to put the hardware back on. Start doing some of the finishing touches. Now I did cheat a little bit with the knobs. This only had one knob on it, it was missing one. So I did have to pull out of our stash and use two other ones so they were matching. And then I just go and reattach the back piece with some nails. And just a reminder, here's what the desk looked like before, and here's what it looks like now.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this budget makeover. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to stick around. And then you can go watch one of these makeover videos right here. We'll see you next week, guys.